Every time I do the power positioning workshop, powerpositioningworkshop.com, I ask people on the intake form when they register what they're looking to gain from the workshop. And this one response really got my attention. Consultant says, I want to land clients without reaching out to hundreds of people hoping for one yes. I can't do that kind of marketing. I cannot do that kind of marketing. Let's take a moment and just live in that pain for a moment. Okay. This is what I find consultants in particular are most dreadful of when it comes to doing marketing, business development, any kind of sales activity is, the spray and pray approach, right? Just like spam a lot of people, reach out to tons of people, and play the volume game, because we've been taught to a certain extent that it is a volume game. There's a popular message out there that says sales is a volume game. In fact, they'll often say things like, some will, some won't, so what? Right? Just keep knocking on doors, keep picking up phones, keep hammering away at the keyboard until you find the people that will. That's kind of what's often cited as best practice in the sales world, right? And consultants obviously don't want to play that game.
Well, I mean, they're not wired that way, right? The whole reason people go into consulting is to have deep interactions with the people in the organizations that they work with. They want to really dig in. They want to solve meaningful problems. They want to, be with like-minded people who are thoughtful and interesting and, really want to make progress. And that does not feel like what is happening when you're doing exactly what you're saying.
And it kind of diminishes your authority and your integrity and your expertise, right? Because what's a client going to think about you, a prospective client going to think about you if you're resorting to these kinds of, cold, sleazy, spammy tactics? They're going to think, well, if they've got to resort to these kinds of tactics, they must not be very busy, because most of these tactics reek of desperation. Mm-hmm. So they must not be very busy, which means they must be pretty desperate for business. I never met a client who wanted to work with a consultant who they knew was desperate for business. Mm-hmm. And so the way that you reach out, the language that you use, the volume at which you do it, it all tells a story to the client. This person's either in demand or they're not. And they want to work with the consultants who are in demand, not the ones who are desperate.
Yeah, desperate and also unclear, right? People who don't know who they are. I got a LinkedIn message a couple of weeks ago from somebody who was selling some kind of solution that involved parts for Harley-Davidson motorcycles. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that tracks, right?
Of course, yeah.
What's that?
How'd they know you have a bike?
I know.
Yeah.
As if. But my first thought was just like, what is this person even thinking? Were they not thoughtful enough to even do an immediate, like just the most minor cursory kind of overview to see who I was and, what I did, what I was interested in, if I owned a manufacturer for Harley-Davidson motor parts, right? And I just think there's something there that also doesn't speak, like it's not necessarily about your desperation or not, but just it's about how are you going to act when we're working together, right? How are you going to approach my problem if you are out there just sort of, spewing whatever message you happen to come up with, at large across everybody on the internet?
Yeah. It's like, if this is the best you could do to win and attract clients for your business, what am I going to see when we work together on my business?
Yeah.
Is this a level of rigor I can expect, a level of thoughtfulness? Is this a level of strategic approach I can expect to see in the delivery of your service? And all of you are thinking, no, of course not. I'd be far more discerning. I'd be far more strategic. Well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Why aren't you as thoughtful, as discerning for your own business as you would be for your client's business? Now, here's what happened. And I got one, by the way, saying, I'd love to have a discussion with Boutique Growth about addressing your food and beverage manufacturing issues.
Yeah.
What? Okay. Maybe I could do that one day, but it's not really what I do today. I'm not really in that market. I'm not sure how you misconstrued what I do as food and beverage manufacturing. So what happened is these people, well-meaning people. Okay. Bless their hearts. They met a guru one day. Okay. They're on LinkedIn and they met a guru. Okay. And this guru said, I can help you get all these clients in a really short amount of time. And they said, oh, amazing. How can I do that? And the guru said, well, send, 1,000 messages. Spray and pray, send 1,000 messages. What'll happen is 1-2% will reach out and they'll book a meeting and you'll win business. And it's an alluring proposition because it seems really easy. You can automate that stuff and you can scale it. And hey, as long as enough people reach out, then no harm, no foul, right?
Wrong.
Except, what does it tell you about the quality of the client if they're going to respond to that kind of low-level spammy message, right? Like, and this is the thing that I think people really, really miss. I get this statement a lot from people, something to the effect of, if I could just get in front of the right people, I'd close more deals, right? When I get in front of the right decision maker, I close it 60%, 70%, 80%. They wear that like a badge of honor. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's the easy part. The hard part is getting in front of the right people. That is the hard part.
Mhm.
The battle that every consultant's fighting is the battle for attention, because there's so many consultants out there and it's so noisy and it's so competitive. So getting in front of the right person is absolutely the hard part. And your buyers, your clients, who are they? Busy executives, decision makers, maybe C-suite, maybe department heads, maybe your middle management, VPs, directors, maybe they're business owners, but they should be, by definition, if they're good clients, busy. They're busy people. And they're not going to go out of their way to have a meeting or discussion with a stranger on the internet unless there's a really good reason to do so. And your spray and pray outreach, your spammy messages with no context, because you can't have much context when you're messaging 1,000 people with the same message, gives them zero reason to talk to you. And therefore they won't. And the ones who will are the ones who have nothing better to do. Not great clients.
So what consultants want to know is there another way, right? Especially if they've been indoctrinated into this notion of volume, right? Just get out there and, get your message to as many people as possible. And eventually someone will pop up who is of, your interest, is part of the group that you're interested in and who will want to work with you. So the question is there a better way and what is it?
Yeah. And the truth is, the game is to a certain extent a numbers game. Like, that's not completely untrue, but you can make it a smaller numbers game.
Yes.
Right? Instead of reaching out to 1,000 people, you might need to reach out to 40 or 50 or 100, whatever it is. There's a way to make this far more efficient. Getting one client from reaching out to 1,000 people is, by all definitions, inefficient, terribly inefficient. And why is it inefficient? Not because your message wasn't good enough, because how good could it be for 1,000 people? It's inefficient because you don't know who you're reaching out to. Likely that list of 1,000 people or clients or organizations is all over the map. Harley-Davidson owners, food and beverage companies, and everything in between, right? Because it's all over the map, you don't know who you're targeting. You don't really have a really credible value proposition. How do you craft a value proposition that gets attention with the masses? I don't know how to do that. And because you don't have a really strong specific value proposition, you don't have a differentiator either. There's nothing. How do you differentiate yourself around nothing, right? When the value prop is broad, how do you differentiate broad, vague value props? You can't, right? There's not enough specifics there. And that's what makes it inefficient. So the way to ultimately make this more efficient is, well, we call this, in a word, positioning. Positioning defines what? Who you serve. And we can break these down in more detail, but I'll start with the list. Who you serve, what problem you solve, and how you approach that problem differently from what your clients might have tried in the past. And I'm summarizing, there's more, but that's the bare bones of it.
Yeah. And I'm going to add, because you talked a lot about efficiency, but I think the other thing that's important, I'm going to call it out because this is the thing that people really feel, right? Is it's also just soul sucking. And what we want for you, and the reason we're having these conversations is we want you to feel good, right? Confident, strong, all the way through the sales process. We don't want you to feel like you are, scraping the bottom of some, messy barrel full of all sorts of odds and ends to, digging through the haystack to find the needle that is the client that you want. We want you to be connected from day one to the right kind of people with the right kind of language. And there's something about that that changes everything, right? It changes not just the way you approach your business development, it changes the way that you approach running your business. It changes the way that you approach deciding to grow your business. It changes the way that you approach working with your clients.
Yeah. I was talking to a client the other day and we were chatting a little bit about her bottlenecks uh, and she mentioned, my real bottleneck right now is I've got so many conversations in LinkedIn Messenger with prospective clients that I'm having a hard time keeping up with the conversations. And we were joking on the call, like, what a terrible, terrible problem to have, right? Is that every time she logs into LinkedIn, there's net new conversations of prospects who are engaging with her, not buying yet. This is kind of middle of funnel. They're not ready to sign on the dotted line, but they're asking questions, they're engaging, they're being thoughtful. Think about how much more rewarding that is. And it's a problem. Don't get me wrong. Like when you have that kind of, she's got 20, 30 active conversations going on LinkedIn right now with good qualified decision makers. It's good, but it's a problem. It is hard to manage and there's solutions for that. But how much more rewarding is that process than logging onto LinkedIn and just having people say no to your, no, stop, unsubscribe, don't message me anymore. And you'll get some of those no matter what you do, right? But there is a world where if you really nail your positioning and your value proposition is strong and it speaks for itself, right? Like the client's got to be able to understand what you do and how compelling it is before they ever have a conversation with you. That should, live on your LinkedIn profile. That should be clearly accessible. And when that happens, that's when you can start to generate conversations. But if that's not clear up front for them to engage with in the absence of a conversation with you, they'll never have a conversation with you. So I just want to be clear that there's a world here, we see it among our client group, where you can log on to LinkedIn and find an inbox full of inquiries and conversations with highly qualified decision makers. That's very real, very possible for you.